Most people think rebuilding begins with fixing what is broken on the outside. More money, better connections, a new opportunity, a fresh environment. But what if the real damage isn't around you at all? What if it's within you, hidden in habits you repeat, beliefs you no longer question, and decisions you've been postponing? At some point in life, everyone reaches a moment of pause. A moment when effort no longer matches results. When hard work feels heavy, motivation fades, and progress slows down. In that moment, it's tempting to blame time, luck, or circumstances. But deep down, there is a quieter voice, asking a more important question. Who have I become? Because life does not break us randomly. It responds precisely to the person we are becoming. If the results are disappointing, it is not a signal to quit. It is a signal to rebuild. Rebuilding is not about starting over from nothing. It is about tearing down what no longer serves you and strengthening what still can. It is about upgrading your mindset, your discipline, and your standards. And the most powerful truth of all is this: the moment you decide to rebuild yourself, you reclaim control over your future. Tonight, this is not a speech about motivation. It is a call to reconstruction, starting from within. Personal responsibility is the moment a person stops looking outward and starts looking inward. It is the quiet but powerful realization that your life, as it is right now, is largely the result of your own decisions, habits, attitudes, and responses. This idea can feel uncomfortable at first because it removes the comfort of blame. When things go wrong, it is easy to point to circumstances, other people, the economy, luck, or timing. But personal responsibility asks a harder question. What role did ye play in where I am today? Taking responsibility does not mean denying that challenges exist. It does not mean pretending life is fair, or that everyone starts at the same point. It means acknowledging that regardless of where you start, you still control the direction you choose. Two people can face the same difficulty and end up with completely different outcomes, not because of the situation itself, but because of how they responded to it. When you accept responsibility, you stop waiting for permission to improve. You no longer depend on motivation, encouragement, or approval from others. You begin to act because you understand that no one is coming to rescue you. This is not a harsh truth. It is a freeing one. The moment you realize that your progress depends on you, you also realize that your limitations are not fixed. They can be worked on, trained, and reshaped. Responsibility shifts your focus from excuses to solutions. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" you start asking, "What can I do next?" This shift alone changes behavior. A person who believes their life is controlled by outside forces will move cautiously, complain often, and expect little. A person who believes they are responsible will look for opportunities, take initiative, and accept feedback, even when it is uncomfortable. Personal responsibility also applies to small, daily choices, not just major life decisions. How you spend your first hour of the day, what you choose to read or ignore, how you speak to people, how you manage your emotions, how you react when plans fail. All of these choices quietly shape your future. Most people overestimate what one big decision can do and underestimate what small daily choices can do over time. Responsibility brings awareness to those small choices and treats them as important. Another important aspect of responsibility is honesty with oneself. It requires the courage to admit when effort has been inconsistent, when discipline has been lacking, or when priorities have been misplaced. This honesty is not meant to produce guilt, but clarity. You cannot fix what you refuse to acknowledge. Growth begins when excuses end, because excuses protect the problem while responsibility exposes it. Responsibility also means understanding that feelings do not excuse inaction. You will not always feel confident, motivated, or ready. Waiting for the right feeling is often another way of avoiding responsibility. Responsible people act based on commitment, not mood. They understand that discipline often comes before motivation, not the other way around. When responsibility becomes a habit, it builds self-respect. You begin to trust yourself because you keep promises to yourself. You say you will wake up earlier, and you do. You say you will practice a skill, and you follow through. Over time, this self-trust becomes confidence, not the loud kind, but the quiet kind that does not need validation. Responsibility also improves relationships. When people stop blaming others for their emotions and choices, communication becomes clearer and less defensive. Instead of saying, "You made me feel this way," responsible individuals say, "This is how I feel, and this is how I will respond." This mindset reduces conflict and increases mutual respect. At its core, personal responsibility is about ownership. Ownership of thoughts, actions, habits, and outcomes. It is the understanding that while you may not control everything that happens to you, you do control what you do next, how you grow from it, and whether you repeat the same patterns or rise above them. Once a person truly accepts responsibility, they stop seeing themselves as a product of circumstances and start seeing themselves as a work in progress shaped by deliberate choice and consistent effort over time. Growth is rarely the result of a single powerful decision or a dramatic moment of change. More often, it is the quiet outcome of small actions repeated with patience and consistency. Daily discipline is the bridge between who you are today and who you wish to become. Without it, intentions remain ideas and goals remain wishes. With it, even ordinary efforts begin to produce extraordinary results over time. Most people wait for motivation to appear before they take action, but discipline works in the opposite direction. Discipline acts first, and motivation follows. When you commit to doing what needs to be done regardless of how you feel, you train your mind to obey your goals instead of your emotions. This is why discipline is more reliable than inspiration. Inspiration comes and goes, but discipline, once developed, becomes part of your character. Daily discipline is not about doing extreme things. It is about doing small things consistently. Reading a few pages every day will eventually shape how you think. Practicing a skill for a short, focused period each day will steadily improve your ability. Saving a small amount of money regularly can change your financial future. These actions may seem insignificant in the moment, but time multiplies whatever you repeat. What you do daily becomes who you are. Consistency also builds momentum. On the first day, effort feels heavy. On the second, it feels familiar. After a while, it feels natural. When something becomes part of your routine, it requires less mental energy to maintain. This is how habits are formed. A habit is simply discipline that has been repeated enough times to feel automatic. Once a positive habit is established, progress accelerates without feeling forced. Daily discipline also develops self-mastery. Every time you choose to act despite discomfort, you strengthen your ability to control yourself. You learn that discomfort is temporary, and that avoidance is far more costly in the long run. This awareness changes how you approach challenges. Instead of fearing difficulty, you begin to see it as part of the process. Discipline teaches you that growth often feels inconvenient before it feels rewarding. Another important aspect of daily discipline is focus. When you commit to small actions every day, you stop being distracted by unrealistic expectations. You no longer demand instant results. You trust the process instead. This patience reduces frustration and increases persistence. You understand that progress is not always visible, but it is still happening beneath the surface, much like roots growing before a tree becomes tall. Discipline also protects you from regret. Many people look back on years of their life and wonder how time passed so quickly, with so little to show for it. This happens not because of one big mistake, but because of many small neglected opportunities. Daily discipline ensures that each day contributes something, even if that contribution feels minor. Over time, these small deposits add up to meaningful change. It is important to understand that discipline is not about punishment. It is an act of self-respect. When you discipline yourself, you are choosing long-term benefit over short-term comfort. You are acknowledging that your future self deserves effort from your present self. This perspective transforms discipline from something restrictive into something empowering. Daily discipline also increases confidence. When you consistently do what you said you would do, you begin to trust yourself. This trust creates stability, especially during difficult times. When challenges arise, disciplined individuals rely on their routines to keep them moving forward. They do not need to rethink everything. They simply continue their daily practices. Growth through discipline also requires forgiveness. Some days will be missed. Some routines will break. The disciplined person does not quit because of imperfection. Instead, they return to the practice without self-judgment. Consistency is not about perfection. It is about persistence. What matters most is not how many times you fail, but how quickly you resume. Over time, daily discipline reshapes identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who does. This identity shift is powerful because behavior flows naturally from how you see yourself. When discipline becomes part of who you are, growth is no longer something you chase. It becomes something you live, every day through deliberate, repeated action and patient commitment to continuous improvement. Every person lives according to a set of beliefs, whether they are aware of them or not. These beliefs form a personal philosophy, and this philosophy quietly governs decisions, reactions, effort, and expectations. It determines what you attempt, what you avoid, and what you tolerate. Long before results appear in your life, they exist first in the form of beliefs about what is possible, what is worthwhile, and what you think you deserve. A person's philosophy is shaped over time through experiences, upbringing, environment, and repeated messages from society. Some of these ideas are useful, while others limit growth. When a philosophy remains unexamined, it becomes a silent controller. People may say they want more from life, but their beliefs may tell them to stay safe, avoid risk, or accept mediocrity. In such cases, effort and desire are constantly undermined by internal resistance. Beliefs about work play a major role in shaping outcomes. If someone believes work is something to escape, they will do the minimum required and resent effort. If they believe work is a tool for growth and contribution, they will approach it with intention and pride. The task may be the same, but the philosophy behind it changes the quality of performance and the long-term rewards that follow. Beliefs about failure are equally powerful. When failure is viewed as proof of inadequacy, people avoid challenges to protect their identity. They stay within familiar limits and call it comfort. When failure is seen as feedback, people experiment, learn, and adapt. The difference is not intelligence or talent, but interpretation. The meaning assigned to failure determines whether it becomes a stopping point or a stepping stone. Philosophy also shapes how people view responsibility. Some believe life happens to them, that success is mainly luck, and that setbacks are unfair interruptions. Others believe life responds to effort, and that responsibility is the price of progress. These beliefs influence behavior at every level. The first group waits, complains, and hopes. The second group acts, adjusts, and improves. Over time, these contrasting philosophies produce vastly different lives. Another critical area influenced by philosophy is attitude toward time. If time is seen as abundant and easily replaced, it is often wasted. If time is viewed as valuable and non-renewable, it is invested carefully. This belief affects daily habits, planning, and long-term vision. People who respect time tend to build steadily, while those who ignore it often wonder why opportunities seem to disappear. Philosophy also governs self-image. What you believe about yourself sets invisible boundaries around your behavior. If you believe you are capable of learning, you attempt new skills. If you believe you are limited, you avoid situations that might challenge that belief. Self-image does not need to be accurate to be influential. It only needs to be believed. This is why changing results often requires changing identity, level beliefs, not just strategies. The danger of an outdated philosophy is that it can keep producing the same results even when circumstances change. A person may have outgrown old beliefs, but still operate according to them out of habit. Growth requires periodically questioning assumptions and asking whether they still serve the person you are becoming. Without reflection, philosophy becomes rigid, and rigidity leads to stagnation. Changing philosophy does not require dramatic events. It often begins with exposure to new ideas, thoughtful reading, meaningful conversations, and honest self-evaluation. As new ideas are considered, old beliefs are challenged. When beliefs change, choices change. When choices change, actions follow. Over time, these actions reshape results, reinforcing the new philosophy. Ultimately, life moves in the direction of the strongest beliefs, held consistently. Skills matter, opportunities matter, and circumstances matter. But philosophy sits beneath all of them, shaping how they are used. When a person consciously chooses beliefs that encourage effort, learning, responsibility, and patience, life begins to reflect those choices. What you think about life determines how you live it, and how you live it determines what you become through repeated decisions, guided by your personal philosophy. Pain is an unavoidable part of the human experience. It enters life in many forms: failure, rejection, loss, disappointment, regret, and unmet expectations. What separates people is not the presence of pain, but the role it is allowed to play. Pain can either educate or imprison. It can sharpen awareness or harden resistance. The difference lies in how it is interpreted and responded to. When pain is ignored, denied, or blamed on others, it tends to repeat itself. The same mistakes reappear under different circumstances. Similar relationships fail. Familiar financial or emotional struggles return. This repetition is not punishment. It is instruction being refused. Pain returns not because life is cruel, but because the lesson remains unlearned. Until awareness changes, behavior stays the same. Pain becomes a teacher when a person pauses long enough to reflect instead of react. Reflection transforms pain into information. It asks difficult but necessary questions. What went wrong? What was my role in it? What warning signs did I ignore? What patterns am I repeating? These questions are uncomfortable, but they create insight. Insight is what allows pain to educate rather than dominate. There is a natural tendency to escape pain as quickly as possible. People distract themselves, justify their actions, or numb their feelings. While this may bring short-term relief, it delays growth. Avoided pain does not disappear. It hides beneath the surface and influences decisions quietly. When pain is faced honestly, it loses its power to control behavior unconsciously. Pain also exposes priorities. It reveals what truly matters and what does not. Moments of difficulty often clarify values more effectively than moments of comfort. When something hurts deeply, it signals importance. Paying attention to that signal helps a person align actions with values more clearly in the future. Another way pain teaches is by developing humility. Success can create the illusion of control, but pain reminds people of their limitations. This humility is not weakness, it is awareness. It opens the door to learning, listening, and adjusting. People who never allow pain to humble them often repeat the same errors with greater confidence and greater consequences. Pain also strengthens discernment. After being hurt, people become more aware of warning signs they once ignored. They recognize patterns in behavior, both their own and others. This awareness can improve decision-making if it is used wisely. When pain is processed thoughtfully, it increases emotional intelligence rather than fear. However, when pain is interpreted as personal failure or injustice alone, it can turn into bitterness. Bitterness keeps a person mentally tied to the past. It replays events without extracting lessons. It turns pain into a permanent identity rather than a temporary experience. This is when pain becomes a punishment, not because of what happened, but because of how long it is carried. Pain also tests responsibility. It challenges a person to decide whether they will remain a victim of circumstances or become a student of experience. Responsibility does not mean self-blame. It means self-awareness. It means acknowledging influence without indulging in shame. This balanced approach allows growth without self-destruction. Over time, the way a person handles pain shapes character. Those who learn from pain develop resilience. They understand that discomfort is not a signal to stop, but a signal to adjust. They become less afraid of failure because they know failure is survivable and instructive. This confidence is quiet but powerful. Pain can also increase empathy. Those who have suffered and reflected often become more understanding of others. They listen better, judge less, and offer support more naturally. Pain that is processed becomes wisdom that can benefit more than just the individual. Ultimately, pain will either repeat until it is learned from or transform into insight that prevents repetition. It is not the pain itself that determines the outcome, but the response to it. When pain is treated as a teacher, it refines judgment, strengthens character, and deepens understanding. When it is treated as a punishment, it traps a person in resentment and repetition, prolonging the very suffering that could have been a turning point for growth and lasting change. Many people limit their potential by believing that growth belongs only to the young, or that learning is tied to a specific phase of life. This belief quietly convinces them that certain opportunities have passed, and that improvement now requires perfect timing or ideal conditions. In reality, skill development is not restricted by age, background, or past mistakes. It is restricted only by the decision to stop trying. Skills are not inherited. They are built through attention, effort, and repetition, regardless of when the process begins. Every skill begins with ignorance. No one starts with mastery. And yet many adults avoid learning because they fear looking inexperienced. This fear is often stronger later in life because identity becomes more fixed. People worry that learning something new will expose their limitations. But skill development requires the willingness to be a beginner. Growth begins the moment pride steps aside and curiosity takes over. The ability to learn remains intact throughout life. While learning styles may change, the capacity to improve does not disappear. In fact, experience often accelerates learning because it provides context. A person who has lived longer can connect new information to past situations, making understanding deeper and more practical. What may take longer in speed is often gained in insight and application. Skill building is not about talent as much as it is about consistency. Talent may provide a head start, but discipline determines how far a person goes. Many people who once showed promise stop improving because they rely on natural ability instead of deliberate practice. Others, who begin later or without obvious talent, surpass expectations by practicing consistently and intentionally. Over time, effort reshapes ability. Another common barrier is the belief that learning requires large blocks of time. This belief discourages people who feel busy or overwhelmed. In truth, skills are often built in small, focused sessions. Short periods of daily practice compound into meaningful progress. Time is not found, it is used. When learning becomes a priority, it fits into the day through deliberate choice rather than convenience. Skills also evolve with purpose. Learning without direction can feel scattered and discouraging. When a person connects skill development to a meaningful goal, motivation increases, whether the goal is career growth, personal fulfillment, or contribution to others. purpose provides energy during difficult stages of learning. Skills develop faster when they are tied to a reason that matters. Mistakes play a crucial role in building skill. Errors provide feedback that success cannot. Yet many people avoid mistakes because they associate them with failure rather than progress. Skill development requires repeated correction. Each error narrows the gap between where a person is and where they want to be. Avoiding mistakes slows learning. Embracing them accelerates it. The environment also influences skill development. People grow faster when they surround themselves with those who value improvement. Exposure to higher standards, new ideas, and constructive feedback stretches ability naturally. Conversely, environments that mock effort or discourage ambition quietly weaken the desire to improve. Choosing the right influences is part of the skill building process. Another important element is patience. Skills do not reveal progress immediately. Early effort often feels unproductive, which causes many people to quit too soon. What is happening beneath the surface is accumulation. Understanding deepens, coordination improves, and confidence grows gradually. Those who continue through the early stages are rewarded with breakthroughs that seem sudden but are the result of sustained effort. Learning also reshapes identity. As skills grow, self-perception changes. A person no longer sees themselves as incapable or limited, but as adaptable and evolving. This identity shift encourages further growth in other areas of life. One new skill often opens the door to others, creating momentum. Ultimately, others call me the belief that skills can be built at any stage empowers people to reclaim agency over their future. It removes regret about missed opportunities and replaces it with focus on present action. The past becomes a reference point rather than a restriction. When a person commits to learning regardless of age or circumstance, growth becomes a lifelong process, driven by curiosity, effort, and the understanding that improvement is always available to those willing to begin and continue building valuable skills over time. Most people focus their attention on changing external conditions, believing that better circumstances will automatically produce a better life. They seek higher income, improved relationships, recognition, or stability, expecting these outcomes to fix internal dissatisfaction. While external improvements can bring temporary relief, they rarely create lasting fulfillment or consistent success. Sustainable results begin internally, long before they appear in the visible aspects of life. Inner change refers to shifts in mindset, character, habits, beliefs, and emotional responses. These elements quietly influence every decision made and every action taken. When inner patterns remain unchanged, external results tend to repeat themselves, even when opportunities improve. A person may receive a promotion, enter a new relationship, or experience a fresh start. Yet, eventually recreate the same challenges because the internal operating system remains the same. Beliefs are among the most powerful internal drivers. What a person believes about themselves determines what they attempt, tolerate, or avoid. Someone who believes they are capable will pursue growth, even when uncertain. Someone who believes they are limited will retreat at the first sign of difficulty. These beliefs shape behavior consistently, producing predictable outcomes. Changing results, therefore, requires examining and adjusting the beliefs that generate those behaviors. Emotional patterns also play a major role. How a person handles frustration, criticism, uncertainty, and failure affects long-term outcomes. If emotions control actions, decisions become reactive and inconsistent. Inner change involves learning emotional regulation, developing patience, and responding thoughtfully instead of impulsively. When emotional responses improve, decision-making becomes clearer and more effective. Habits form another critical internal layer. Daily routines, often performed without conscious thought, determine long-term direction. Habits are not random. They reflect values and priorities. Improving habits requires internal commitment before external change is visible. For example, financial improvement begins with discipline and awareness before money increases. Health improves through consistent choices long before physical results appear. Character traits such as integrity, discipline, responsibility, and resilience also influence external outcomes. Trust, opportunities, and respect are built in response to character over time. A person may desire recognition or leadership, but without developing reliability and accountability internally, those results remain temporary or unattainable. External success tends to amplify inner qualities rather than replace them. Inner change also involves identity. People act in alignment with how they see themselves. If someone identifies as undisciplined, they will unconsciously resist structured behavior. When identity shifts to seeing oneself as reliable or committed, behavior naturally follows. This is why forced external change often fails. It conflicts with internal self-image. True transformation occurs when identity evolves. Another important element of inner change is awareness. Many patterns operate automatically until they are observed. Awareness allows choice. When a person becomes aware of their thoughts, reactions, and habits, they gain the ability to adjust them. Without awareness, effort is scattered and results remain inconsistent. Awareness creates alignment between intention and action. External results often lag behind inner change, which causes frustration for those expecting immediate outcomes. This delay tests patience and commitment. However, once internal changes are established, results often accelerate rapidly. What appeared to be slow progress was actually preparation. This is why sudden success often follows long periods of invisible effort. Inner change also builds resilience. when identity and values are strong. External setbacks lose their power to define self-worth. A person can fail without feeling broken, lose without feeling defeated, and adapt without losing direction. This resilience stabilizes progress and prevents regression. Ultimately, external results act as reflections rather than causes. Income reflects skills and discipline. Relationships reflect communication and emotional maturity. Health reflects habits and self-respect. When inner qualities improve, outer conditions adjust accordingly. Attempting to change results without changing the inner foundation is temporary at best. Lasting improvement comes from working inward before expecting outward rewards. When beliefs become empowering, habits become consistent, emotions become regulated, and identity becomes aligned with growth, results follow naturally. Life improves not because circumstances magically change, but because the person responding to those circumstances has changed, and that change quietly but powerfully reshapes every outcome that follows over time. As we come to the end, remember this truth: your life will never rise consistently above the person you choose to become. Circumstances may shift, opportunities may appear, and challenges may test you. But the foundation of everything you experience is built within you. Rebuilding yourself is not a one-day decision or a temporary burst of effort. It is a lifelong commitment to growth, responsibility, discipline, learning, and inner change. You are not defined by where you started, what went wrong, or how many times you've fallen short. You are defined by the standards you set from this moment forward. Each choice you make, each habit you strengthen, and each belief you upgrade becomes another brick in the structure of your future. When you work on yourself consistently, life has no option but to respond differently. Rebuilding yourself means choosing progress over comfort, learning over excuses, and purpose over fear. It means understanding that every challenge carries a lesson and every setback holds the potential for growth. When you commit to improving what's within your control, you gain clarity, confidence, and direction, and the results begin to follow naturally. I wish each of you the courage to take responsibility, the discipline to stay consistent, and the patience to trust the process. May you build a version of yourself that you respect, believe in, and are proud of becoming.